Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Rosie King from Corporate Training Options. In times of great change, we look to our leaders for inspiration and guidance on how to cope with our different world. At Corporate Training Options, we have a team of amazing coaches and facilitators in the leadership field who over the next few months will be presenting a series of leadership webinars for you. Today's webinar is presented by one of our leadership experts, Catherine Palin-Brinkworth. Catherine is going to share her advice on navigating chaos, which will leave you encouraged and confident to move forward. I'm now going to hand over to Catherine.
I was pretty sure I'd unmuted myself. That's the #1 trap for young players on Zoom. So thank you, Rosie, and hi, everybody. And there are a few that I can see and perhaps a few more coming that I can't. But it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to share some hard-learned thoughts and ideas around navigating chaos. And this is not a topic I'm unfamiliar with. People say, why do you talk about this? Well, because someone's got to. And for me, I think my curiosity began when I was doing my master's degree in applied science, and we studied chaos theory. And suddenly a new universe opened. And the core principle for me was that when everything looks at its most muddled, it is finding a new order. And that's almost common wisdom now. But then for many of us, it was, wow, really? Okay, show me. So we're looking for new order. I feel particularly familiar with chaos as someone who probably grew up with a lot of illness, polio, asthma, blah, blah. And 18 years ago was given a terminal cancer diagnosis and told I had 18 months to live. So clearly I've muddled my way through that one. And, single motherhood, being left with a 2-year-old, and all that stuff. And a lot of people go through that. I'm certainly not alone. But what we learn is that you can survive pretty much anything. And if you can find some core principles that allow you to become, if you can, your own leader, to take on what I call self-driven leadership or personal leadership, and even better, be able to lead and guide and support others, then it's a pretty useful experience to have had. So I want to share some thoughts with you today on my screen, and hopefully it'll be useful for you. And I'll look forward to perhaps hearing back if there's anything you're willing to share with me afterwards. So we're into navigating chaos. And Rosie saw my slide earlier and she said, wow, that's an interesting photograph. And I wonder how many of you might think, yes, that's what it feels like for me right now. Or maybe even that. And when I read some of the posts on social media every morning, it certainly seems to be what a few people are going through, maybe 1 or 2 world leaders in the process who aren't quite admitting it. Here's one of the things I've learned in my life, and I'm sure you have too. Change is a constant, always evolving. Pain is probable because change is almost always uncomfortable. So pain can happen. Chaos is actually inevitable. And in fact, you want it. You don't like how it feels, but you want it, believe me, because that's how the new order evolves. And as the Borg taught us, resistance is futile and suffering is optional. We don't have to beat our chests and go, oh, woe is me, this is terrible. Of course we will feel grief and sadness, no matter what the cause of the change. We will mourn the loss of the way things are because it's familiar and it's comfortable and it's our identity, it's who we think we are. But once we recognize that, it's time to let it go and to go exploring. And there are many ways we can explore. We can look up and think, oh, where could I go from here? We could look down and think maybe there are some clues in my past. We could go backwards and go, yeah, well, I want to go back to doing my bookkeeping by hand, really? Or I want to go forwards and imagine what the world would be like if I never had to do any bookkeeping again. But standing still is definitely not an option. It just isn't. It doesn't matter whether we're in chaos or not. And by the way, we always are. It doesn't matter. You cannot stand still. There are only two states of existence. One is growth and the other is decay. And yes, they are laws of thermodynamics. So we must progress somewhere. The choice is ours. Standing still is not an option. So here's something else I know, and I did unfortunately have to say to Rosie, we're going to cover so much in such a short space of time. I'm going to go boom, 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 boom for a while this morning. Navigating chaos depends on our self-mastery, and it depends on our ability to hang out with tension. If we can hang out with tension, with discomfort, with stress even, we can navigate. But unfortunately, we're wired to look for the path of least resistance. We're wired to look for comfort and familiarity. That's our reptilian brain that wants to preserve homeostasis, that wants to make sure that everything is going to keep going the way it always is. And because it's kind of reptilian, it doesn't know that. But we do. We know that even through uncertainty, there are certain things that are certain, and we can find them and make them work for us. I love this photograph. It's actually a demonstration of the surface tension of water. Tension is necessary. Tension exists all around us. Tension is a comfortable, proper thing to have, and we need to learn to love it. There are two ways to create the least resistance in our chaos, in our pathway forward. We can either hang out with the tension, such as whenever you've managed to stick to a diet, whenever you've kept going to the gym, whenever you've continually learned to get up every morning, put the running shoes on and go, you've learned to hang out with the tension, because it's always a battle of mind over mattress, for me anyway, at that time of the morning. We've learned to, if we can, hang out with tension, or we can remove the tension. And we can remove the tension by changing our sense of who we are, by letting go of the way we think it is, and deciding or realizing that we are creatures of continual evolution and movement, that we are beings that evolve. And our question is, how will I evolve today? I love this quote from Lao Tzu: those who flow as life flows know they need no other force. And it's a very fine balancing act to allow the flow and to go with it, and to continually create the flow with a level of allowing, with our very clear perspective on what we want to create, and allowing it to be created as it needs to be. And this is big, and I could talk for an hour on each one of these. I learned these Four Noble Truths many years ago now, during a family crisis, when an amazing Buddhist teacher in Melbourne helped us, more than I can say, with my stepdaughter, who was heroin addicted at the time. You can understand in such crisis that I learned a lot and continue to learn, and she now is the glorious, shining mother and beautiful woman. And I learned them, and I will never forget them. Here is the first noble truth. It's the truth of suffering, that life is dukkha. And the word dukkha means unsatisfactory, painful, unpleasant. It just is. It's the way it is. Life is dukkha. And when we live with that, somehow we manage it better, we navigate it better. It's when we believe in Hollywood and we think everything is meant to be wonderful and we'll be rescued from everything that is, and someone will take care of everything. Well, there's a lot of people who still believe that, and it isn't true. The truth around the cause of the suffering is the fact that we have cravings and we have desires and we have attachments to being comfortable. We want things to stay the same, or we don't want things to stay the same. Someone must leave us and we don't want them to. And so it's painful, it's suffering, it's unpleasant, it's uncomfortable. The truth of the end of suffering is that we need to eliminate attachment. We need to come to terms with the fact that life comes, life goes. People come, people go. Good times come, good times go. And it will pass, whether we want it to or not. And the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering is what the Buddhists will call the Eightfold Path. And I will leave you to explore that if you're interested. I hold no religious attachment. I'm sharing because I find that to be extraordinary common sense. And the way to learn to let go is in front of us every single day. And probably every single time we, Rosie, you know me well, every single time I crave for some kind of delicious ice cream, peanut butter and chocolate is my favorite. If I could eliminate that attachment, I would eliminate a lot of the suffering in my life around tight waistlines, etc. And that in itself needs a little bit of thinking through. We need to be prepared for what will come and be willing to move when we need to move, no matter how afraid we are. I rather like that message. So I've lost the watch off my screen by sharing my slides, but I know we've got to be very quick now, Rosie, I promise. So here are my 5 chaos crunches. The first one is know the I. And I wonder if anyone on the call at the moment has gone through a cyclone. Anyone? Wave your hand. No. Yes, I do have someone. You know, I haven't, but often in my audiences, I have people who have. And I'm sure you'd agree, they tell me that the most memorable experience, and I saw it on TV with the nasty whirlies they've had in the US, the noise is like a freight train. And it roars and roars and roars and roars. And then all of a sudden, there's a silence. And the silence is the I, right in the middle of the cyclone. And then it starts again. And I think that's like life. Whenever you can find those quiet times, those peaceful times, go inside and find your I, because it's there and it will take you to where you need to go. It will be there for you, and you can go there whenever you feel the need to navigate your chaos. The second chaos cruncher is to nurture your network. Now, I live and mostly work alone, but I can tell you that I'm a life member now of Professional Speakers Australia, and I'm a member of a number of other professional organisations and networks, and they are probably keeping me sane, although you might not agree. I have nurtured them for many years, and they are nurturing me back. When chaos is roaring and you need to remember what matters and you need to know where you're going, it'll be your network, hopefully your family, your friends, those who you relate to and belong with. The third one is to always speak your truth. And the reason that's in there is that I found a lot of the chaos in my life many years ago was caused by not speaking my truth, by wearing masks and pretending all was well when it was not. And that's why the knife is the symbol for cutting through, for releasing the cork. for just being who you are, always with kindness, always with as much respect and generosity as you can manage, but always speaking your truth. The fourth one is to lighten up. Now, most of you will know our Redheads Matches cover. When I used this slide in the US, they had no idea what I was talking about. But this reminds me to strike a light, love, and lighten up. You know, I know some people we love are leaving us right now. But I also know that people we love will always leave us. And we will go too. And I reckon it's pretty important to lighten up and make the most of being here while we're here. Make the most of every moment and have as much love and joy and fun and laughter as you possibly can, because there isn't a single one of us that's going to get out of here alive. And I'd rather laugh about it than cry about it. And the last one that I'm going to share with you today is to conserve energy. And the kind of energy is not so much our physical energy. We know pretty much how to manage that. And Rosie, I think you said we might have a wellness speaker at some stage. I mean our emotional energy. It's that drains us so much. And that's about letting go of any anger and resentment that belongs in the past. It's letting go of any fear that belongs in the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I get so angry with journalists interviewing a leader who say, so what's going to happen next? Well, hello, I haven't seen too many crystal balls floating around lately. Nobody knows. We have to hang out with chaos. We have to hang out with tension and make the most of where we are right now. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to Rosie for letting me share stuff that's made sense and helped me over the years. And thank you for coming along and sharing time with us. Catherine Palin-Brinkworth signing out. I'm often known as CPB. And of course, that stands for clarity, purpose, and belief. The three things I think we need to navigate chaos. Thank you, Rosie.